going to do a 3-day workshop, but he has agreed to do a 1.5 to 2 hour demonstration today. And I'm really looking forward to us learning about what his insights are about light and shadow, and just some other skills that when you look on his website, you see that he focuses on when he does his workshops. So, Michael, I'm going to turn it over to you and not waste any more time. Welcome.
Well, hi, I am here. Yes, I am. I'm gonna mess around a little bit, setting up a couple of things while you're all being patient there. I hope you're all well, and I wish I could have been there in beautiful Atlantic coast area of Florida, but that's the way it is these days, isn't it? One of the things, I'm still looking at my setup here to make sure I've got everything right.
Where are you, Michael?
Where do I live?
Yeah. But where are you now? I don't know where are you now? What state are you in?
We're in Texas. Yeah.
Oh, well, you got nice weather.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful today. We've got about 70 some degrees, a little cloudy, but we do have a nice day. And sorry, I'm still trying to get everything set up right. One of the things that I would suggest for you to do if you are if you're going to be on here and you have a computer, you can mute your microphone, and then when you just use the space bar, that will give you the ability to speak while the space bar is down, and then when you let go, it'll mute again. And you can talk, but we don't have a lot of background noise going on. That's always a difficult thing. Karen, are you the administrator of this particular Zoom meeting?
No, that would be me. This is Lori.
Okay. I mean, is my screen going to be pinned for people to see the large and all that?
Yeah, right now you're spotlighted. If you have another setup for your equipment.
No, all we need is this right here. As long as you can hear and see, that's good. We'll go from here. I do want to welcome all of you from the Brevard. How do you say it? Brevard?
Yes, that's
Brevard
it.
Watercolor Society in Melbourne, right? Melbourne, Florida. Really happy to be with you by way of the crazy world of wireless and internet and all those crazy things. I was supposed to be there, of course, but that didn't happen. But I wanted to shout out, because I am streaming this over my Facebook now, so everybody will get people from different places watching. But I do want to promote Brevard Watercolor Society. What a great bunch of people, and you have a lot of things going on there, and it's a beautiful part of the world. They have workshops regularly and a very active membership. So those of you that are not even living there, they're doing some online things, and you can always join in that way. So let me get on with this thing we're going to do today. Let's see. I wanted to go here and just show you. I want to make a painting today that relates to a series of images. It's not one reference photo. Sometimes, you just don't have everything you need in one photo to make it what you want. So sometimes you have to kind of build from some things that you might have available. So that first one was an interesting one. This one here, I love the atmosphere. Love these chairs and all that. It's kind of a fun thing. This was in the mountains near Boone, North Carolina. I was up there teaching for Chief Joe at Chief Joe's workshops, and I always give a good plug for Chief Joe. He's a great guy, and they have a great place, good materials. And we spent some time up there wandering around the mountains on a kind of a hazy morning. And I love the way the fog and the atmosphere creates that aerial perspective. There's so many things about the area, but see that painting there could be painted. There's lots of portions of these paintings that would work. The way the light's streaming through the trees, it's a beautiful thing. That's my wife down in the corner there taking photographs. We were out shooting photographs. I got to pop one in here of her. She likes animals, so there she is talking to a donkey. But we're going to take those and those photos and some others and some other paintings actually. So this is a painting that I did. It's a little bit of a sketch really, but it's a little painting. I love the distant atmosphere. I love these trees and all of this reflection area and the rocks down there. I'm going to kind of use this as a basis in a way for this painting. I also have another painting that's similar in some ways, more vertical. It's got a flowing stream down here. And then I have a little colorful sketch that I did that I kind of like. I like the sketch. I like this color. I like the things that are going on in that. So I might use some of those colors. This sketch at the top, I started doing a little sketch and I kind of worked my way down to this one here. I want to have a building in here, just a simple building. And I want to have this sort of, I want to have a little bit of a circular motion. So I might have a cloud form right in here. I want to have this circular design. I believe some things change once you get started, but that's what I'm starting off with anyway. And I'm gonna have this little building down in here. Maybe it's a cabin, whatever it is, it's just a building in this sort of setting. And it's sort of a, it's not really a Florida coastline kind of painting, but maybe you're tired of those anyway out there. I don't know. If you have any questions, feel free to shout them out. And if you chat them in, I assume that one of you who are part of the Watercolor Society can just ask them to me. I'll be able to see some of the comments that come in through YouTube. Those will show up on my comments section that I have here. So some people might be popping questions in there. All right. So this is my 12 by 16 140 pound arches. It's usually what I use. I'm going to look at this rectangle and break it down. Now you saw this little doodle here. I have this image. If I were to break this down into thirds, like so, you would see that my building falls into this joining there of those lines, which is kind of a good thing for a normal painting. It isn't always the case. You don't always follow those rules because rules are meant to be broken. But in this case here, I'm gonna try to keep it fairly tame painting. It's not going to be a real abstract thing or anything too out of the ordinary. It's going to have a nice pleasing composition. So my grid, if I put that same grid on here, we're going to have lines here and here. So my building's going to be somewhere over in here. My eye level is an important part. I'm really keen on the eye level and getting that right. It doesn't have to be, it shouldn't be in the middle of your page. And so anywhere off the center, I think is a good place. I think I'll put my eye level about right in here. I always want my eye level to be my starting point when I start a painting. I want to know the perspective. I want to know how everything relates to what I'm seeing and where I'm looking. Mm-hmm. So so that's my eye level. I think I'll put my building about at eye level. So this building is going to be, we're looking straight at it. Maybe it's a cabin and another little shed that comes off of it. something like that. Very simple. I'm using just a soft lead pencil, just the softest lead, so I don't leave a lot of lines on here that are too hard to get rid of if I have to erase. This is the question always is, which one do you use? Well, this is a 2B. So then my question is 2B or not 2B? I got one laugh out of that. Good. Okay. I'm trying to be funny. My wife says you better have a little humor when you do. Of course, when you're doing in-person workshops, it's one thing, but when you're doing these online things, you never know, what's going on out there. I don't know if people are laughing or disgusted or what.
We're all respectfully muted, but there was a lot of ah-ha-has.
Well, so when there's a joke and you want to laugh, you can unmute and then laugh. How's that? So I'm going to have a little pond or stream coming through that's going to show up down in here. Now, even in nature, without the buildings and things like that, there still is perspective in terms of linear and aerial and all these things. Well, so a pond down here, or a portion of a pond, is going to have this sort of oval shape. And if there were others, as they got closer up to the horizon line, they'd get narrower and narrower. That would be the way you'd make a stream flow, for instance. But I'm going to have something happening down in here, and it's going to be in a shape. The main shape is going to be somewhere in here. I'm going to have my horizon line is still right in here, so I'm going to have trees back in here. I'm not going to draw them in. I'm going to have some trees up in here and have more trees and forest back in this side. So I don't need to draw all that in. I just need to know where it's going to be and then let my imagination go. This is pretty much a fictional place. Oh, it is a fictional place. I've seen a lot of places like it. But this one here is totally a combination of all the things that I mentioned before, the photos I showed you, places I've been, influences that I've had, and of course the experience of painting some. So I do have some things going for me in terms of how to create this. I'm looking at this now and I see this has got a pretty big space up here. I should have maybe made this building a little bigger. Seems a little small. I could just bring it up a little bit in size and just erase a couple of lines. Maybe that'll feel better. Yeah, well, I think that works better. This building is, it could be a little barn, it could be a little shed, or a cabin. If I put some cattle around it, it would be a barn. If I put some people hiking, it would be a cabin in the mountains, maybe. So anyway, whatever it is, we'll have to make a story as we go here. I like to have a story for my paintings. I like them to have some logic, and so that sometimes is the way to approach it, So on with the painting part. Let me do a little, show you a couple things here about materials. So my materials are oftentimes going to be, most of the time I use 140-pound cold press arches, sometimes rough, sometimes Saunders, Waterford, and rarely do I use Fabriano, but it's good paper. I would tell any student that if you're going to chintz and go cheap on some part of your materials, don't do it on paper. Paper is the thing that makes the painting really work. It's about, the watercolor paints themselves have different amounts of pigment in them depending on the quality, but there's still pigment there. The brushes, you can use anything. I'll show you some. I use everything from my fingers and fingernails to scrapers and palette knives and toothbrushes, whatever it takes to get marks down, doesn't matter. So you make sure that you got little work. As far as tools that are brand names, there's Mops and Rounds and some others that I have there that I use. I use some Princeton brushes. I love the Princeton Velvet Touch Long Round. The Scotta Perlas are really good for what I do. And I have some mops and some Hake brushes that I like a lot. My colors palette is somewhat like most palettes. I'd say there's nothing too unusual in it. On the bottom there, you'll see a group of more opaque colors. I do use some titanium white, and or you could white gouache. I use some most of these are Holbein colors. The Juan Brilliant is kind of a yellowish tone. Both of those are. Lavender is a little bit more of a sky blue, light blue, but it's opaque. So it's kind of nice to have that in your arsenal if you need it. So those are my tools, my paints and tools. Let me see. I do have some online workshops that I have created that I wanted to mention. If you're interested, those are on my website. Those are edited versions of my online workshops, but they're available streaming anytime. I gotta set up one more thing here. Okay, here we go. With this technology, there's just too many things. All right, I'll come back here. So there you can see my palette on the side there. That is a Holbein metal palette with, I'll pick it up here. It's got a thumb hole here for if you're doing plein air, you like to hold your palette. It's an enamel, metal and enamel, so it takes the paint real well. Sometimes plastic, until you get it broken in, doesn't. It kind of beads up kind of funny. But I like this little palette. It's small enough to travel. It folds in half. It doesn't seal, so the paints can go all over. So I have to, when I travel, I have to put it in a plastic bag or something. I use a variety of these paints, mostly Daniel Smith right now, some M. Graham, some Winsor Newton, and I can talk about those more as we go along if you have questions about them. But anyway, there's my palette. Put that in front of that camera a little bit so you can see it. All right, I guess we should paint.
I just want you to know I'm home. There was no one at the pool.
Okay, so does that affect what time you want to go?
No.
Is there a question, or is that an unmuted mic?
Holter.
Oh, is this Michael Holter?
I think it's an unmuted mic.
Oh, is this Brevard today?
Happening live. I don't know for how many people, but it's for Brevard.
Please mute.
So I'm going to, actually, I was painting around that building, but I decided there's different approaches every time I approach a painting, and I sometimes have to, I change my mind sometimes about how to approach it. A lot of times, a good way to start is just to get the whole thing wet. This paper is taped down; it's not stretched. Do a nice wet into wet to start with. That's always a good way, in my mind, to approach the overall feel and color and tone. For instance, I'm going to start with some warm tones. I'm going to use some yellows, some New Gamboge, some raw sienna, quite a bit of raw sienna right now, not to get it too bright and vivid. This raw sienna is kind of like a yellow ochre if you use that. Some people use that. So I just want to put some color on. Well, my light's going to come from the top left over here. So there's going to be light coming in. And there's going to be light hitting over here. So these are, I know these are going to be areas of light. And that means having more yellow than some other areas, having more warm tones. We'll take a little cerulean, my kind of favorite sky blue, and put some of that up here.
Michael, somebody asked if eye level is the same as the horizon line.
Correct. Yeah, the eye level is your horizon line, especially when you're out like this. I can't see the horizon on the horizon because it's got there's trees and everything here, but I do know that I want to have some I want that eye level or horizon line to be a point of departure when I'm painting. I want to know where that is. So what I'm doing here, I'm putting some of that sky blue down the bottom here. I'm toning back the corners. I want the light to come down through the painting along this direction here, so that it so you have this angle of light. I don't need a lot of color in the sky. I did this with that blue. I don't want to paint around in it a lot because it's going to it is going to be a subtle sky. I'm going to have a lot of trees in front of it, so I don't really need a lot there. And I'm being kind of vague about these trees right now. I'm just sort of putting some things in there. Now, if I have water down in here, it's going to reflect some of this color from the sky. Not all of it's going to be blue, but there might be some blues that'll come down in there. So I'm just going to throw some blue down in there, but I have to work on that some more later. Now, one of the things about watercolor that I work with my students on a lot is you don't want to overpaint into the wet areas. Best thing is to let the paint and the water and the pigment and the water do its thing and let it have its own space to work. You get some beautiful effects. Now this is a very simple, basic wash. Now I can put some more color on here. As this is drying, I could put some more in there. I could also dry it thoroughly and come back and put some water in there. There's lots of different ways to approach this next step. Let's see, let me do, I know I want to make this, I'm going to lift off some of the water on this building so I don't bleed into it too much right away, because I might start doing some, looks it's still a little damp in there. Let's try this and see. I don't want to, I want to put some distant trees in there. I hope it's not too dry yet. Now, things dry out. I can always take a spray mister and add a little bit of spray, and that'll keep it moist. Keep it from drying out too much. So here I'm taking a little bit of ultramarine blue, a little bit of burnt sienna. Don't want to make it very, I'll let some of that raw sienna go in here to kind of green it a little bit. I don't want to make it very green, but I want to see what I can get right in here. Now this is my background trees back in here. I'm just going to throw these in. They're going to be distant trees. And I'm using a Hake brush. There's not much
What
pigment on there.
exactly is that brush?
I'm sorry?
Explain what that brush is, please.
It's a Hake. This one is a Dick Blick. You can buy a set of them for very little money. They're just an inexpensive pony hair brush. I guess they're Chinese or Japanese brushes. Okay, I'm making a darker mixture now. I don't know if you can see how much darker that is. I don't want to have too much. I took some of it off my brush. So I want to go a little darker. Put some darks down near the bottom. I need to get a little more definition in those trees in the background, but I want to leave some of that just the way it is. So let's say over here, I'm gonna, let's see, maybe over, Light's going to come through here. This side here, I want to get a little bit more on the warmer. Which side? Okay. I know I need some definition on these trees. These are a pine tree. Now it's a little drier up here, so it's going to hold this form a little better. I don't know if you can see it, this other camera angle, that still doesn't show it. It's a little bit of shine to it, but not much. I'm trying to be real subtle with this. Now, because the light's going to be coming from over there, there is going to be some warmth on these trees. I'm going to pick up a little bit of this gamboge and drop a little bit of that onto this tree here. Just same colors I had in the background, that a little bit of warmth. And of course, blue and yellow make green, so we're good. It should be a greenish tree. Okay. This needs to be darker down at the bottom. And in the forest and the woods, it's always darker, less light as you go down into the areas away from the sun, away from where the light is hitting. I still have some of that yellow on there, so it's coming out a little green, which is okay. I think I need a little more burnt sienna, kind of tone that back a little bit, gray it a little more. And so what you can always do, see, is as this is drying, you can work back into it. You don't want to push your paint around. You want to keep going in with more pigment. If you go in with more water, it'll disperse and it'll give you some weird blossoms. So let's say down in here, I decide I want a little darker tree. Let's make it's coming a little bit more into the foreground here. And of course, it's still pretty wet, so I'll have to add more to it as it gets a little drier. Now, I want that color, I want this color to be warm. I'm going to put some warms in here. By that, I mean orangey warm. I want some unusual kind of color. I want burnt sienna and orange. I'm going to put some of that in here. So the sun is hitting this side over here. I need a little more moisture. Paper was a little ripply there, so I ended up with a streak up here, a little higher than I wanted it to be. But sometimes things don't go exactly the way you want them to, so you have to adjust. That's part of the nature of watercolor. I'm going to go a little darker now as I go down here. A little more actual yellow in there. This is my cad yellow. So these brushes are kind of neat because you can get a lot of textural things, but you can use the corner of it to almost get a real fine line too. So let's put let's see. It's kind of fun. Put a little warmer tone on there in this. I make a stew. Usually that's what I call my stew. I start with some colors that I need in the beginning, and as I start working on it, it turns into a different tone, and I change the tone, I change the value, change the color, the intensity, and it becomes a what I call a stew. And that stew is what I work with throughout the painting, really. So I'm kind of happy with some of those colors I've got there. And what I was really trying to achieve in this portion right here was that back in here, there's the distant area, very light, subtle, cool colors, cool recedes, warm colors come forward. So I've got cool, distant, and it gets a little bit darker. So darker then comes forward, and then it gets darker and warmer. It'll be both darker and warmer. So that'll come even further forward. So I end up with those 3 layers of depth right there. And I still haven't gotten to my darks yet, my real darks. So this is quite wet. If you can see it there. See, that's pretty wet down in there. After I put those colors in there, that with a fairly wet brush. And it's drying from the top down. I have a slight angle on my board. Any questions out there? Pretty quiet group. If you have any, if you're watching on YouTube, pop a question in there in the chat, just saying hi or something, because I think I'll see that, and I just want to make sure that that's working properly. So as I take a sip of coffee or a sip of something and sit back and relax, I see then, as this is drying, areas where I need to work. Now, this little tree in here looks pretty good. I might just leave it. I think maybe a little darker value, just a little more pigment down in this area, let it bleed. This is all really a wet into wet opportunity. Everything here is wet. Now this is creating a little bit of a halo here that is not, maybe not becoming, because it's a little drier up in the blue and a little wetter down here. So I'm going to take this smaller brush. This is that I mentioned before, the Princeton Velvet Touch long round, real long, and there I'm going to break this a little darker. I'm going to break this edge here, make a darker passage. Some of these same colors, but I'm just going to break it right into this area that was already breaking up and showing me that it was the different what's the word, the different amount of water. I was trying to think of it, that's viscosity or what that would be called. But anyway, there was more water in this part I put on later, so it was creating a little edge that I didn't like. So I turned that edge into something that's more appealing, a prettier setting, a prettier little bit. This is kind of nice the way this all bleeds together. I was thinking about putting some value in there, but maybe not. I like that, I like that. So I'm just looking at things that I like. Usually what happens is I see things that I don't like and then I fix them. Scott Adams, the creator of the Dilbert comics, he said, creativity is allowing yourself to make mistakes. Art is knowing which ones to keep. And when you're doing watercolor, that's a very important distinction there. What are the things that you need to keep, and what are the things that you could just as well destroy, get rid of, paint over? This is kind of blah in here, but I like what's going on up there. So let's just put another tree, shorter tree, a little darker tree in here. Could have gone a little bit, still pretty wet though, unfortunately. So I need to let that dry a little bit. Now, this kind of painting, this kind of subtle thing is useful for obviously for this kind of a subject, but you can use the same kind of thing, or if you're doing florals or whatever it is you're doing, you can have some of the same use some of the same kinds of techniques and approaches. So I'm going to look at this. I'm going to have this building here. It's going to give off a shadow off here. Just want to sort of establish this ravine here. And some of these other shadows then are going to also come off because there's trees here. But light is hitting here, and there's going to be trees up here casting shadows across quite a bit of this. So there's going to be these bands of shadow that are going to define the terrain. They're going to define this little valley I have here. And you're also going to have to lose some of these edges because you don't want all your edges to be hard edged and found. You want some lost edges. That's one of the things about painting that makes paintings more interesting than a photograph most of the time, because you can create your edges. You can create found edges like these here, lost edges like those there, that one right there, lost. It just goes into nothing. It's a very important thing to vary your edges. Now this got kind of messy because it was a little too wet. Now I want to go in here and add some strength to it, but I want to be careful that I don't add more problems to it. So it's quite a bit darker. The thing about watercolor, the more water you have on your paper, the more pigment you need in your brush to get to a value that you might want. Now, the beauty of that also is that makes that water in the paper makes your paintings very subtle at times. That can be very very helpful. Now, I don't want to overdo this big dark tree here. I'm gonna, let's see, I'm gonna put some color down in here, value. I don't want a lot of detail in there. I will put some little bit of detail in here in a second, but I'll let that sit. This is another Princeton flat. Has this chisel point end to it, which works good for making marks into the wet paint. Like for instance here, I might want to have a tree. Maybe back in here, a couple of little trees. Maybe in here, a couple of tree things, and I'm going to have some over here, especially right here. I'll try it now. It might be a little too wet. We'll see. And I'm going to, as this indicates right here, there's going to be some rock forms in here. Easy way to make rocks is to use the flat edge of something. A flat edge of a credit card works really well. So that's the that side of this background. Now I need to do this side of this background, and then I got to work my way down into the bottom. Now I want to try to keep it within the time limit you have for me, and also I'll make sure I don't get too carried away with all kinds of details. This is fairly broad painting.
Yeah, we're doing good on time. We have another hour or so, hour
Yeah.
and a half.
Questions from out there?
No, Vicky said, I'm enjoying seeing the technique and how everything is coming together. So we're happy.
Well, happy is good. We're on a Saturday, you know, we ought to be happy, right? Shouldn't be, there's some branches coming off of this tree sideways. Give it a little more attention to that tree. Maybe make that a little broader down there. One thing about if you're out in the woods and the forest, the trees do have a lot of different coloring to them if you look for it, depending on how the light hits and how the, you know, if they're dry or if they're very wet. Okay, now this side over here is going to be another challenge. I will, there's different ways to approach it. I could wet this down back there behind the barn and just treat it like that, get it wet in the wet. I could just go in with on dry paper with a very, you know, with a brush with a lot of pigment and create my variations that way. Or I could kind of mist it a little bit with this spray bottle, which I think I will do. I'll just re-wet it to some degree. Not totally wet, but some bit of wetness. I'm going to take this little hake brush again. Now I'm going to go back into my colors that I was using earlier, the my gold quinacridone. I mean my this is New Gamboge and some other things, I guess. Now let's see what we have here. Okay, I sprayed it quite a bit, so it's pretty wet. Okay. So I want these trees that are going to be in here to really have a glow, like the light is coming through there. And I think we'll get there. Looks like I really got it wet. That was more than I wanted. All right, let's switch to some burnt sienna. Put some of that in here. Some of these we're going to have a variety of textures and colors in this portion over here where the yellow is, the sun is hitting, and we're going to show that as the sun coming through those trees. And we can just creating some shapes here. They're not, doesn't need to be particularly defined that much. I want it to be up fairly high onto this side, so I'm bringing this up a little bit more. Now this side of the trees is going to be a little darker because the light's coming from over there. We want this side to be darker. So I'm going to use more of the burnt sienna, ultramarine blue. And to make it a little bit green, I might add a little bit of quinacridone gold into it. I like quinacridone gold for my greens. Ultramarine blue, quinacridone gold, burnt sienna make some wonderful greens. They're deep and they're not overly what's the word I'm trying to say here? I never really liked greens that much, so I have a little hang up there. So I try to keep my greens pretty simple. So this barn here is going to have some. We have some of these these pine tree shapes. Now these can be darker and stronger because they are going to be into the foreground from the from what's over there, and these are softer over here. I'm assuming that those will feel a little more distant, and we're just creating some stuff here. Tall trees. And maybe one up in here, some green in there. I'm going to go a little cooler again and get this, clean this brush out a little. This ultramarine blue and some of that stew. And I'm going to go in here because of this. I want to be a little bit another step up from that background there, but not. I don't want to have to go. Just want to keep a little bit of distance from background stuff to these foreground trees here. We'll just give them a little bit of gradation from all that green to this blue. Put some of that blue in here just to balance out. Unity and harmony, bring your color. If you're painting with a color on one side, sometimes it's good just to drop a little bit on the other side, just to bring some harmony and color, harmony and unity in. So we've got this light coming through this way here. See, so there's this, that's what's going to happen. We want to create a sense of some streaks of light coming through. Now, take just a damp brush, lift off some of that. Now I'm going to go back over the top. We don't want to have those, just glaring like that. Like that's they're sort of a spaceship landing or something, but we want to have them kind of filtering through in and out of the trees. We want that kind of feel. So now I'm going to have to get a little darker down on the bottom here. This yellow pigment, I can bring some of this green I have in here and green it out a little bit. It's very wet still down in here. A little too green, I'd say. I think I need a tree up in here that's a little more solid. I don't want the light up in that corner, so I'm just gonna paint that in. I want your eye to go to the light areas over here, not up to the corner. Okay, so I need to keep working on this this other passage on this side, filling in some of these gaps and creating these trees that are a little bit more solid. And I see that some of these are still, like this one here. Well, I like that color. Maybe it's this one here that needs to be darker. One of these needs to be a little stronger, so I'm going with this smaller brush. putting some layers, one on top of another. But remember, when you can come back, like making these streaks in here was creating something lighter in that watercolor. Watercolor, you gotta pretty much, you're planning on going from light to dark most of the time. So there's a chance where you can go the other way, or there's a couple different ways to do that. So I'm being real abstract in that area. I'll take some quinacridone gold. I love quinacridone gold to make my greens. I'm gonna just splatter some of that in here. This whole area here can have some color, have some variety, and take some quinacridone burnt orange. Drop that in with some splatters. This whole section is a section of light filtering through, lots of variation in color and the way the light breaks through the trees. Lots of things happening. Now, I can overwork this and turn this into a mud puddle. But the more you let the paint and the water do its own thing without you brushing it around, the more it'll work. And sometimes, you know, it's a point where you need to, I'm not saying this is the case here, but if this was a real disaster, you can always just add some water, spray on it, and let it do its thing. Re-wet it that way and let it drip, let it run, let it become a different portion than what you had before by adding that water, but letting it do its own thing, not you pushing it around and trying to recover it. So that really lightened it up, gave us some air. And it's wet now. I can go back in here and I can add some more things. Okay, I'm gonna go, well, this is still pretty wet. I'm gonna go down across here to this, get the barn a little bit more. I think I'm going to, I'm gonna make a little fence thing here. Got a little some shapes there. Repetition, one of the principles of design. You can put some repetition in. I've got repetition here, put repetition in there. Anytime you can throw some repetition into your painting, you do utilize the principles of design that can make the painting much more interesting. Okay, so we've got this building here. I didn't really paint the value of that building to be a particular value in terms of being, right now it could be a snow-covered roof and I could do it that way. I didn't really do anything on it to create the illusion of a particular color. I'm going to pick up some blues because blue is your main cool shadow area. I'm going to put some, like off the side of this this one roof, there's going to be a shadow. And we're going to put that in. And there's going to be all this is in shadow here. Right down into that shadow there. So there's some other shadows coming off of this stuff here, off the trees. So there's a, maybe there's a that color gets pulled down in, that color that's wet right there. I just pull that in and let that become part of this shape. So the shapes are all connected. and soften some edges, because the further you get away from the object, the tree, for instance, the more your shadows become diffused. So let's just say that that's, and then we have this gray shadowed side of this wall here, a little bit darker maybe. Let's pull a little bit of something across there. And the wonderful thing about shadows is you have lots of things happening in shadow. Now this ground down here is going to be picking up some warmth from the from the ground, so there's going to be a warm glow bouncing light up into the under the eave of this building. Okay. Well, I should probably go back to this over here. Now it's still pretty wet, but I'm going to leave some of that very subtle. So I might need,
Michael, when
Yeah.
you're making your grays, which blue do you prefer using?
I am just sort of stuck on ultramarine blue and burnt sienna for my main colors that I use for grays and so on. I don't, that's just what I've been using forever. And you get browns, you get warm and cool grays with that. Add other colors to it, mix that as my base though. So
Thanks.
you betcha. I see that there's some areas here where I might be able to pull a little darker value behind some of these lighter ones. Let that light kind of pop through there. Still wet though. If I wait for it to be more dry, I can get these edges real sharp if I want them. It's probably okay to do them this way. See how wet that is? It's just bleeding like crazy there. Now the top of this edge up here is going to be a little bit drier. So I can decide, do I want to highlight some portion? Let's say this tree right here. It's in front and goes in front of this sort of orangey warm tree. Let's make that a little stronger. And down here a little stronger. It's even wet down there. So I'm adding pigment that's stronger and darker. It's got more pigment in the brush than what's down there, so it won't bleed out. I think I might pick up some of this moisture just to kind of speed that up a little bit. When I sprayed, now I lost some of that streak through there. That's okay. So I'll come back to that. I think what I need to do is do something broad down here in the bottom that will. So I want I think this is going to should be a little warmer, kind of picking up the warmth of those trees, not as cool, not like green grass. But let's say we're going in with this, some of this raw sienna, just mixing it right into the stuff I have here on my palette. And we're just going to, so the light is coming through, and we're going to have some, so we're certainly going to have some warmer areas over here where this raw sienna is going to hit and make those areas, they're going to stay warm. We're going to have a few areas probably where it's going to come through here. Let's say this is fairly sunlit right in through here. So I'm making this up, this is out of my head. So I can't really tell you exactly. A formula or anything for this. I'm going to take some burnt sienna, just a little bit more rusty color, and drop some of that into here, make that a little bit more varied. So those colors are, so this becomes a little, almost a wet into wet again. You're dropping color into the existing color. And this little pond down here, I'm going to keep that, keep my little edges of that sort of horizontal. And okay. So I see that I need to, let me get this other brush, smaller one. This is still damp up here. I can come back to that, but I'm watching it all the time, watching that area because I want to work on that some more. Now it's a very nice soft area. I could probably leave it. I've got some darks along here and some darks there, and your eye can get this passage through. I made that little cloud up here to make your eye go around. I might leave a lot of that now that I see it. It's kind of a hazy, misty feel. That was kind of what I was after. Sometimes you get into a painting and you forget what you were initially hoping to do because you get hung up in what you're doing, and sometimes that's a danger. You know, you get hung up and start doing things that destroy the initial plan you had. Watercolor is one of those things I always tell my students. It's a bit like playing chess. In chess, you know the best players are the ones that can see further down the road to what's going to happen. They can see the end from the beginning, and I think that's a bit of a truth of watercolor. You really have to be on guard all the time because you can lose track of what you were initially set out to do. And so I'm going to make this hill more of a shadow across here, I think, and let some of that. Now this is just a gray, again, burnt sienna, ultramarine blue. Here's the edge of this pond. That can be a little darker. There's some. The cake brushes are great for a lot of things, but one of the things they're good for is that when you spread these hairs out, these fibers out, you can create really nice grasses, and like the edge of this pond here, or over here, this, and you can create positive and negative shapes with that brush. Very easy to do. And for you know, I don't use these all the time, but for these kind of landscapes, it's really handy to have a hake brush like this. I've got some big ones. I got some huge ones. I'm doing a little bit down in here to just break up this big area. It's wet down in there, so it just kind of leaves. This area up in there, I'm more I'm looking at that, the more I like it. Now my scraping tool, it should be a point here where we can get some scrapes into some of this. So the light is coming through, you know, coming through the wood, the forest here, and it's going to hit certain areas and make some areas just stand out as the light hits a tree trunk or something. I can do too much of this and kind of destroy the flat, simple area that I had here. I might want to go back down in there and darken down in that area. That's probably what I will do. Okay. Anybody having fun yet? I am. What better way to spend a Saturday? Somebody on my Facebook feed says, watching from Versailles, Kentucky. Let's see. Let's see my chats for my YouTube. Where is it here? I don't see any chats there. Why not? See, I should have some chats. Oh, there's a couple. So, oh yeah, there it is right there. So I can put these up on the screen, see? Watching from Versailles, Kentucky. Somebody else, hi from Minnesota. So you didn't know in Florida you had all these fans, did you? See? And by the way, this is a demo for the Brevard Watercolor Society in Melbourne, Florida. So you see that up on the right side. There is a website link there, or URL. I am doing a workshop on the next 3 days. A little plug for you all at the Brevard Watercolor Society. If you are interested in a workshop and signing up like today for tomorrow, starting tomorrow early, there's still room, and it's a faces and places. We'll do mostly places. We're going to do a couple of face things. We're going to mix it up a little bit. We're going to do a lot in 3 days. So, you know, you're welcome to check that out. These folks in Melbourne are great. They've been doing a great job of getting all this going and keeping us going even in the COVID days. So we're happy with all that.
Carolyn says you're doing a beautiful job building the layers, or you're building the layers into a beautiful painting.
Thanks. Yeah, it's coming. I think it's good. I'm happy with it.
So can I ask you a question about the workshop preps? It's a little off topic, but
No, that's good.
got a bunch of pictures to sketch, but watching your painting, it looks like you don't really lay down the details of any, like the background trees or just the main elements.
Yeah, on the landscapes, on the people, once we've got set up for the people, I would say that on those, on the portrait type, the best thing to do with those is draw and I think I sent an example of the one which we're going to use for a little exercise. Just
Yes.
just where the eyes are, where the nose features are, where the shadows fall, a few lines that indicate that, and try to get them accurate. If you want to trace them or project them, that's good to get the face right. That's the main part. The rest of the stuff we're going to be fairly abstract with. On the landscapes, I usually try to put in, like one of them was the boats, or there are two with boats. So the boat shapes, any boats, buildings, where you want people placed, maybe, and basics. Don't get. I don't do much like with the rigging on boats and things like that. I don't put those in at all. That just gets, unless you want to get real. Some people are just very, very particular about what they put where, and they want their every piece to be in the right order. If that's you, go for it.
Not me.
I am more of an impressionist, so I like to just place things where I feel they need to go, and how many masts and with a bunch of boats that you need isn't dependent on how many boats that are there. It's depending on what I think it looks like it needs. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
So anyway, good question though. Yeah, for those of you that are doing the workshop, I really like the way these are lost edges in here. However, I just have this insatiable desire to do something there, and see, that's where I should probably not do something. But I think this little fence area, maybe I can just put a little color behind here and do something. It's just a little bit too empty. And this is very wet still, I find. So let's see if I can get a little pine tree shape. And now, these are mostly like, I'm doing these sort of pine tree shapes. I like painting them, but you know, it could be other, you know, you could do the same thing with your palm trees down there in Florida, the way the light hits them and so on.
Yeah, we've got a ton of pine trees too, so that's
Yeah,
not a
you have the
problem.
loblolly pines, don't you? In the
All kinds.
We have a lot of scrub pines.
and you know, pines are just fun to paint because you can really literally, you know, make them grow anywhere you want, any way you want to. They're a lot easier to paint the painting with trees like this than it is to paint a human with a face. You know how to get that correct, because this is it can be very abstract, and it is. These are just like abstracted areas, you know. Now I'll when I get this dry, I'll put some more light beams coming through, and probably, and we'll try to finish that off that way. The let's just do a little. Let's see. So my eye level is up in here. If I remember correctly, I put a line there somewhere. It's up in here. And so from your eye level now, well, it's not exactly true. So if a blade of, you know, a tree trunk or something right here next to the water was this high and it was right next to the water, it would reflect pretty much straight down, like these grasses. I should have those reflecting straight down. Now something further back is going to reflect down, so I'd see this, the top of that tree down here. So what I really need to, for this water down here, I need to show a reflection of this stuff up there. So let's just going to put a little water on here, not fully saturate, put a few little marks in there. Now, so this area up there, a little bit of this, what I started with was the cerulean, not too wet. So some of that is, there's some cerulean in there, and then there's some ultramarine blue in those trees. I don't need to have it exactly the way it is up there. But I just want to look at it and say, okay, well, it might, and then I have these warmer tones, which are going to fall somewhere over in here. Doesn't have to be, again, exact. I'm just dropping in some warm colors, letting them just kind of create their own. Well, if there's, you know, if there's ripples, if there's any kind of motion in the water, it's going to affect what happens, right? I'm just going to a little dry brush to leave a little flecks of light on there. All you really want to do though is just change the color of this so it's different than what you have in the back here. Now, if I was going for hyper realism, I'd probably want to have this darker in general, because it will be darker, and if you can see into it, it's going to pick up the color of the mud or whatever it is in the bottom. So that would become more prevalent. But for this purpose, for this kind of a painting, for what I'm doing right now, I think that works pretty good. Okay.
It's beautiful. Nancy says, I really like the added balance this little dark tree on the left provides.
Mhm.
A little dark tree on the left. Yeah, that kind of needed to be there, isn't it? I'm going to pick out that limb or that tree trunk in there a little bit with the scrape. Now this is all dry, I imagine. Yeah. I could have scraped some roof things into that a little bit there. Now, I don't know. I'm not looking at any kind of photo, so what I would do here is I'm just going to take a little bit of this warm stew. I'm going to make a few vertical lines on this siding of this building, just to give it a little bit of that feel of that vertical siding. And one of the things about the way I do, and I've done a lot of architectural stuff. I actually started off college thinking I was going to be an architect, and so I have a love for the architectural stuff. But what I do, I never paint. I shouldn't say never, because there's always some way that could be proven wrong, I guess. I rarely paint every shingle on a roof, or every brick in a wall, or every stone on a cobblestone walkway. It's going to be, I'm going to symbolize it with marks and space them out, and it may or may not, and may or may not be completed. It's usually some kind of a representation of the thing, the object, or of the texture, I should say. Let me do a little darker pigment here, and just going to do a little. So this is a cabin. There might be a little doorway here. Maybe it's open, dark and opening. A window. And this is a pretty big cabin now. It's starting to look like a barn. So anyway, there's going to be some windows somewhere in it, I suppose. You don't need to paint everything real detailed. It's just a mark or two that makes it look like, suggest, the opening. And this this opening here, see, that's really cold and empty. Usually there's going to be something happening inside there. Light's going to hit some object or something. So I'm going to put a little red in there just to get your eye to not just kind of get lost in there. There should be some color even in the darkest area like that. Okay. So one of the things that I was going to do, I could still do, I guess. We are, we'll take some dark stew again, kind of a gray. I'm going to put some additional dark stuff right in here. On this edge of the pond. And I am going to take, in this case, I'm going to pull out an old credit card. And I'm going to make these, this into some rocks. Now the sun is coming from up here, so if the sun is hitting there, it's going to pull, the shadows are going to be on the right side, so it's easy to just bring that pigment that you just put down. It's still pretty wet, and it's not super saturated either. So one way to create rocks, one way to create trees, there's a lot of ways to create a particular subject. And I look at all these things as kind of the shorthand of watercolor. You are creating when you learn techniques, you're really creating a shorthand, a way to let people know what it is you're painting without having to paint everything that's in front of you.
And said she'd like to see the sunbeam again. I don't know exactly what, Diane, what question did you have on the sunbeam?
She wants it to be brought back from where I messed it up. Okay, I'm going to mute my mic. I'm going to dry this thoroughly, and then I'll do that. Okay, hold on.
So I'll just use this time. This is Karen to remind everybody that if you want to join, just go to the website and it tells you there how to do it. And where to send the money and register. And I will send you all the materials. I'll be monitoring my emails all evening after rest of the afternoon, so I can get them to you as soon as possible. But also, I want to remind you about Leanne's son. If you want to take his workshop, it's online now. Same price as it was, but you've only got like 3 weeks or so to sign up for it.
Okay, I'm back. So there's several things that I want to touch on here, since we have a little time left, right? So wherever we have a dark pigment, I lift it by scraping with the tools to get back to light. But you can also just lift with your brush, and you need to have an area where there's quite a bit of pigment, like up in here. I could very easily just wet this down and then just wipe it off with a paper towel. And there I have my tree trunk back again, because it's a pretty dark pigment that was laying on top. It's not a staining pigment. It's a more of a granular one. Now this area right in here, I'm not sure how this is going to work, if it'll come off. Not much. See, it's not dark enough there to really make it pop, but it shows a little bit. But if you want to show light coming through, so you can also then take and I can go back to this beam that I had here, make it work a little bit better. Let's see. There needs to be something back in here. That didn't work too good because it wasn't very dark. Now another method to do that, of course, is to take and mask off an area, a strip, and use a magic eraser. You all know what that is, right? Let's see, do I have one here?
Yeah.
The magic eraser will lift and remove the pigment. And you'll also, that probably hurt your ears there. It will also, so if I take and put some on two sides of where I want my beam to go, say I want one in here, a narrower one maybe, and I get it wet, clean water preferably, and just use the brush to, or the sponge, you'll see. So that can also be a way to add some of that light beam stuff. Very easy to do, and it's useful. It's a useful technique for lots of different things that you might want to add to your paintings. Now, I would, as soon as this is dry, I would want to put something in here, a tree in front of it to break it a little bit. But So you have that light beam thing. You have he's coming down. Now I didn't really get a lot of real light and dark over on this side, showing that as much as I would have liked to, but that's okay. I could also, I think I will take and let's see. I think I need to just lift some of this and kind of create a little bit of a fogginess by lifting a little bit of this. And that will help, I think, to give me a feel of this being a little bit lost back in here. And there's usually a place, depending on what you see, where a tree could be. You could add some linear calligraphy marks to break up a space and make it a little more interesting. Now, so let's put a little bit of, let's break this a little bit here. Use your finger, all the tools you have at your disposal. This is a forest. There's all kinds of things happening in there, you know, light bouncing through. But I don't want to get too detailed over there either. I kind of like this subtleness of it. You know, you get to a point and you realize if I do much more, I'll probably just distract from the things that I like about it. I often will use opaque paints at the end on a cityscape, for instance. I'll put a little bit of use some whites and some value to some brightness to bring some light back into an area where I've gone dark. And I could do that up in here. I could put some little, you know, real distinct areas in there of bright white. And there's usually a spot or two where I've splattered paint and messed up. So that's a good place to put a bird. There's always birds, aren't there? And just kind of break up the space a little bit. So I think, I feel like I've gotten it where I want it to be. My last step, I've got 2 DVDs that are out from Creative Catalyst that are called 7 Steps to Watercolor Landscapes and 7 Steps to Watercolor Portraits. Those are both available from Creative Catalyst. My 7th step is a real tricky one. It is the signature. Sign it and take ownership of it. And it's yours. You did it on this day. It was your painting, and you might as well be proud of what you got done, even if it didn't turn out the way you wanted it to. I don't think a watercolor ever turns out exactly the same way as you intended it to. It's just the way it works. But
That's beautiful.
I think that's about where I'm going to leave it today. Let me take the tape off, and we can look at it. Remember the workshop starting tomorrow, and it's daylight savings time tomorrow. So I have to get up very early for you East Coast people.
Oh, right.
And get ready to go and be here.
Michael, do you ever have to let a painting sit because you just don't like it and then come back to it later and you like it?
Oh, yeah, yes, absolutely. Sometimes, yeah, sometimes you get just too close to it. And there's things that I would come back and fix or change. That's great. I don't always feel like I've gotten everything exactly the way I want it every time. So, well, anyway, for those of you with the Watercolor Society, we can chat some more. I'm going to close out that feed to YouTube and so on. So let me just do that. And by the way, and we'll chat some more here if you want to.
Carolyn, we do start at 9 a.m. East Coast Eastern Standard Time.
I'm sorry, what time do you start?
9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time.
9 o'clock?
9 to 4.
8 o'clock my time.
Right.
Which is 7 o'clock actually. Y'all are mean.
We have one participant from Denver who's going to be even earlier.
Oh yeah. Wow, yeah. For sure.
Michael, thank you so much. I've made so many notes and little sketches and things as I've been watching you.
Great.
So I'm looking forward to the next 3 days.
Well, it's going to be fun. I'm going to try to keep it interesting. It's doing online workshop versus an in-person workshop is a kind of a unusual thing in a way, because I can't walk around and give individual instruction that much. So or at all, I should say. So it becomes a little tricky that way. But well, I do.
Could everybody unmute and give Michael a great big hand?
Thank you. Hey, Michael, for tomorrow, which ones of those reference drawings should we have ready?
I'm trying to remember what I said. We're going to do some things where we won't need them right away. And then let's see, that little barn painting, I guess we're going to do that as an exercise.
You had two barn paintings. One was the red barn and the other one, the square, and the other one was one that you had two on an 1/8 size paper.
Yeah, the 1/8 size one. We'll do that as an exercise. Maybe we'll do the one with the tall trees and the boats. The
Loblolly. I think it's titled Loblolly.
Yep, that one.
Just out of curiosity, are you doing that as a horizontal or a vertical? It can go either way.
Vertical.
Okay.
Yep.
Before we let Michael go, does anybody have any questions? Now's your opportunity. Workshop or demo or anything, I guess.
On the workshop tomorrow, which ones are using the hot press and which are using the cold press?
So I only use the hot press on the portraits, and we won't do those until day 3, I guess, on Tuesday.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So yeah.
Thank you again, Michael. It was great. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Good demonstration.
Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you.
Let's give a round of applause. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yes, thank you.
See
Yeah,
some of
really,
you tomorrow.
Michael. Looking
All right.
forward to tomorrow.
Bye.
Brevard Watercolor Society for putting it together. It was great. It's
Yes,
good.
thank you.
Bye now.
Bye.
Bye. You're
Bye.
welcome.
See you tomorrow.
Lori, thanks for everything. Couldn't have done it without you.
Thank you.